A quick video on the function of Newronika tDCS system. The system is composed of the programming system, called the HDC prog, and the take-home unit for the patient, which is called the HDC stim. The HDC stim can be placed inside the carry case, to protect the unit when with the patient. To program the unit, you need to plug in the 240-volt power plug into a source of power. Connect the PS2 cable, carefully as the pins are thin. The cable can only go in one way. Connect the other end of the cable into the programming socket of the stimulator. Turn on the stimulator and the unit will go into programming mode. Enter in your practitioner code. Each practitioner has their own individual code. Once the code has been entered, press the program button. You are then presented with 6 options. First, set up the date and time by pressing on the date and time menu. You can set the time by pressing the description field. To get the time settings onto the other device, press the program button. One of the other options in the menu is the info section. This tells you about the system firmware, current date and time last stored into the device. The next section of the menu is the stim function. In this menu, any of the parameters on screen can be changed, such as the current, the amount of time the treatment occurs, and also the ramp-up time. Ramp-up time is the amount of time it takes to get from 0 amps to the maximum set current. The next parameter that can be changed is the intensity. It can be changed in single values, multiples of 10 and multiples of 100. Underneath this section you can increase and decrease the current as well as the duration. Once you have the correct settings, you can hit program and it will be transferred into the device. In the treatment section, there is the options controlled or free. Free treatment means you are not restricted by the amount of treatments you can give in a time period. An example of when to use this setting is when you're treating in a clinic and you might have patient after patient. This is not for use when a patient is using the device at home. In this situation you would use controlled that has been programmed by a practitioner. If the device needs to be set up so that the patient can use it at home, hit the controlled button on screen, and you can adjust the time between treatments. You can also adjust how many times you want patients to be administered treatments before they need to come back and get the device reprogrammed. You can set it to 30 treatments, which is 1 every 24 hours. Once you have the right settings, hit the program button and it will program the device. The channels menu. Most of your treatments will be with one channel, which is anode and cathode on the one channel. You can work with 3 physical connections to the patients, which is 2 channels. The 2 channels will require use of all 3 pads, the 2 cranium-based pads and the larger arm pad. Most treatments at home will only require the 2 cranium pads that go on the F3 and F4 position of the brain. So we have set this to 1 channel. You can turn the percentage sham up and down. We don't want sham if you are going to be treating a patient. In this menu it will once again show you the current settings of the stimulator. Press the program button and check to see if the settings are correct. You can generate a report once the patient has come back. The report will show if there has been a failed treatment, or if an electrode has been placed incorrectly on the patient's head, or if there was a bad connection. All of the mentioned faults will be shown in the generated report. If a treatment has been stopped because of an electrode not being held in place, or if there is a break in the cable, it will restart the treatment from when the error occurred, once the issue is rectified. That is basically programming mode. Turn off the device and remove the cables. It is also best to turn off the programmer first before removing the cables. This is a tutorial on the patient take-home kit of the tDCS. Safe to use at home, after your practitioner has programmed the device. This may be once every 24 hours, for 30 days. Then the patient goes back to the clinic, and the device is hooked up to the programmer. The report can then be obtained from the device. To prepare the device for the patient, you would place the cables into the socket. We have 2 forehead electrodes connected. There is also the optional arm connector. The way you connect the arm connector is by physically pushing the banana plug into place. Then plug the other connector into the adapter. When working with 1 channel, which applies for most patients at home, the black cable goes to the black port, and the red cable goes to the red port on the channel 1 side. To prepare the electrodes to be used with the patient, the sponge will need to be wet with salt water. Salt water will give you better conduction than standard tap water. The sponges have to be damp. Place the electrodes into the sponges. Then put the cap onto the patient. Apply the gel onto the sponge, and put the sponges onto the patient by placing them under the cap.